So I just did a countdown. I hope that was enough time. So if we could all start by introducing ourselves, we can start from Kate and then go to Rosa and Emily and Viv.
Hi, I'm Kate. I'm a fourth year at St Anne's, so I'm literally just about to finish. And I've studied French and I've lived in college basically my whole time. So I've definitely got a lot of things to say about accommodation.
Hi, I'm Rosma. I just finished my second year and I study chemistry at Oxford. I'm originally from Finland, but I've lived kind of all around the world, so I can answer any international student questions and chemistry related too.
Hi, I'm Emily. I do classics and English at St Anne's and I'm in first year. So if you have any questions about freshers or anything like that, I've got a fresh experience, so to speak. And yeah.
Hi, I'm Vivian. I do law. I'm also a first year. I'm the incoming JCR president. So if you have any questions about, JCR activities or just, life at St. Anne's for freshers, just like Emily said, I guess I'm the fresh voice, especially regarding the whole pandemic situation. So I guess I can give you a pandemic rundown of what life has been like at Anne's. So the first question I think we'll start with is, did you directly apply to St. Anne's? And if so, why?
I actually didn't apply to St Anne's, though that being said, I'm very glad I'm here now, would just like to clarify. But I hadn't heard of St Anne's before I applied to Oxford. I didn't know a huge amount about Oxford, so I kind of just applied to one of the colleges that looked quite big. And I was pulled to St Anne's, so I never had an interview anywhere else. I basically was sent straight here. But in hindsight, like kind of looking back on the 4 years, I am very, very glad that St Anne's is the place where I ended up. Like, it's just so chill, it's so friendly, and I just wish it was kind of a bit, more well known amongst students who are applying. So anyone watching the live stream, you're in the right place.
I have to say I so agree, because I personally didn't apply either, and we actually had another person who applied for the same subject who did apply to St Anne's, and now we're actually both in St Anne's from the same school. So I think that's perhaps one of the reasons I'd heard of it when I was like, oh, she's applying, so I won't apply. But I'm honestly so glad that I'm here, because it's really different, I think, from perhaps the image that people might have of like certain colleges, even though those colleges, the buildings are perhaps the reason that they have that image. But I think St Anne's is just, it's so lovely, and the community is just great. So it's really glad to be here as well.
I actually did apply for St Anne's, unlike you guys. And it was a strange one, because I was walking around Oxford on an open day and I saw in the classics department that some tutors were doing kind of walk-in sessions. So I went and I basically spoke to my classics tutor, Matthew Lee. And I just got along with him so well that I was like, I want this guy to teach me. So that's the reason I applied. But if there are any drop-in sessions or sort of ways to talk to tutors via Teams or anything, I would definitely recommend them, because it's quite a fruitful thing to get to know the person that would be teaching you. So it's a taste of your degree.
I didn't apply to St. Anne's actually. I can't quite remember where I applied to. I think it was an open offer. I can't quite remember why I applied to, but I did not apply to St. Anne's. Hadn't ever heard of St. Anne's, but I did have all my interviews here and everything, and I just loved it. I remember doing interviews, I thought, oh, if I really don't make it, I'm going to be so sad, because I really enjoyed the interview experience, and I thought, oh, I really love the college and I love the people, so if I don't get it, I'm going to be just upset and stuff. But I'm so happy I ended up at St. Anne's. Like you said, it's a very different, it's not the typical Oxford college. I don't think it's what people would assume when you think of, I'm going to Oxford and I'm going to college. It's such it's calm, and it's a very, I guess people call it a vibey college. That's something I've heard. It's a good vibes college. It's an amazing college. So, and I'm not just saying that, I actually really like it here. So yeah, it's a great college. So we went to the next question, which is, what did you like about St. Anne's now that you're here? Like your favorite thing about the college so far?
I'd say, I think a massive bonus, and this is something that's actually quite particular to St Anne's, is in terms of accommodation, the kitchen situation is really, really good. So wherever you live in St Anne's, you are guaranteed to have kitchen access just for your accommodation. So, you're not going to be sharing a microwave with 70 students or something. And I know that some other colleges don't have kitchen access at all for students unless you rent, elsewhere. But that's what I really like about St Anne's is, like if you don't maybe fancy the dinner on in the dining hall, or if you just want to kind of cook with some of your friends, like you've got your own space in your accommodation to like sit and socialize and like cook dinner and, have breakfast, and kind of a more like a less formal situation, which I think makes St Anne's feel much more like home than maybe if you went somewhere else and you don't actually have somewhere to like even make a cup of tea.
Yeah, I know loads of people actually come to St. Like if they know a friend at St. Anne's, they come and they like have like nights where they just cook together, because that's something that you can do, and it's like not just something that you get from like second year on. You have it in first year as well. I mean, like in first year I lived in one of the accommodations, which perhaps like the smallest kitchen shared between like the most amounts of people, but even then it was a kitchen. We had a table and everything, and it was that's like so great compared to what you get in other accommodations. And also I have to think, I think that like St. Anne's wise, they sort of like I feel like I say this every single time, but the community is just so great, because I feel like everyone is so supportive. It's just not just your tutors, but genuinely your peers and everything. Everyone just wants you to do well, which is just a really nice environment to be in, because I think that you're going to do better in a place where people want you to do better.
Yeah, to follow up on that, I definitely think there's never, in terms of tutors and there's never pressure in the ways it's never pressure to perform, more pressure to just sort of enjoy it and do your best. And it feels like with my tutors, and I from what I've heard from other people with their tutors, it's just that they do really care, and they want you to get the most out of everything. It's not we want you to do really well, we want you to get a first, whatever. It's just, we really want you to enjoy this and really learn. I think that's, and one of my favorite things about St Anne's is actually just the kind of, just the buildings. I think I like how all of them are very different. It's just this like a little eclectic bunch of weird buildings, and some of them are really old. I think the most recent ones were built in 2017. And it's just very nice. You feel this college is kind of growing and expanding. So yeah, I think it's very cool.
Yeah, I really do like the view and sea. I was gonna say that I just enjoy, like I always say, I love how we have like the Hartford building, which looks kind of old. Then there's the Ridge next to it, and that's quite new and exciting. But I quite like the distance from St Anne's to like the main city centre. It's not too far, but it's not too close. So we're never like in the busy like city centre. So you can just like stroll to Tesco's or stroll to the city centre, then come back to the safety and quietness and peace of St Anne's. That's what I really enjoy. So I think I'd like hate being in like right in the city center where there's like so many like people around. That would just be too much for me. But I quite like the the distance from St Anne's to like the main city center.
Yeah.
Rosma, there's a specific question for you, and it's basically, how is chemistry different at St Anne's?
I guess it isn't too different to other colleges. I mean, obviously with each college you have different teachers. Some colleges share their teachers with other colleges. So actually Anne's chemists share our teachers with oral chemists. So we sort of not only get to know the oral chemists a bit better, but we have to go through some tutorials there. And I know that that's the case with quite a few colleges. Other than that, I'd say we have quite a small intake of chemists per year. So our year we have 3 people. Generally it's 4 people, but sometimes it's a little bit more than that. But across the years it tends to be around 4. So I guess that's a bit different. So you're not going to have a very big group, but that also means that we can have tutorials with like the whole of our chemists, which is quite cool, because you definitely get to know all the chemists and all of that, and it's still very one-on-one with the teacher. Otherwise, I mean, I guess this goes with every subject. If you have certain very specific interest and your tutor's research isn't exactly that interest, then it might be a bit different of an experience. But I wouldn't say that you're probably going to find out like what your specific interest is anyway, like into the degree, where you've been able to meet like lecturers and people from labs and all of these things. So you have those connections anyway. So I'd say that it's pretty similar to what it would be at other colleges. So subject-wise, I don't think there's a big difference.
Yeah, and like Kate and like Emily, would you agree like it's similar to like other colleges, or are your subjects like different? And if there like any similarities or differences, or just like
I think that, so like definitely for French at St Anne's, which I think is a big bonus, is the classes are quite big. So we have, I think in my class there was 7 of us, which is actually quite a big number compared to some other colleges, and I really like that because it means that you've got, a lot of other people to kind of bounce ideas off, and also it makes it, quite nice, like mini friendship group as well. And at St Anne's, so for French, we don't share classes with anyone. We have kind of all of the tutors we need, I guess, in college. But I mean, that's also what's nice about Oxford, is being able to go to other colleges, to have tutorials and stuff and classes. So throughout my degree, it was only in my first year that I've ever had classes in St Anne's, because for everything else, I kind of chose modules that let me really like go completely all over, which was another bonus.
Well, I think I do classics and English. With English, I think it's pretty standard. Everything's within college, and it's quite a big cohort. But what is nice is that there are a lot of joint schools. A lot of people doing joint schools. I don't know what to call them. But yeah, so with classics, it's quite different. So I have tutorials at St Anne's, Brasenose, and St Hilda's, and I think next year I'll probably have them at other colleges as well. And it is very nice because you just get to kind of move around Oxford, and particularly since we've been having classes in person, I've been like cycling all over the place. It's just a bit more invigorating and to move around, which is nice. But I think classics in English, there are only about 15 of us in the whole uni, like in first year. So I'm quite lucky to have another person at my college doing classics in English, because in a lot of colleges it's just one person. So I think I could probably get a bit lonely, because it's nice to be able to kind of share an experience, and if you're stressed out. But yeah, that's one nice thing.
Yeah, I'd say it's the same for law. In Michaelmas, I think we had to like go to other not go to other colleges, but go to other colleges via Teams and Zoom. So we had like tutorials in like Pembroke and House Manchester and Wadham, but then in Trinity, I think it was a lot more like St Anne's based. I know other students came over here for like tutorials and stuff. So it is. I think it's quite similar, because like you just share tutors with different other colleges, so we end up all doing like the same things basically. The general question is, what can you tell us about expression of religion and identity at St Anne's? Rosma, would you like to start? Sorry for picking you.
Yeah, this is a really good question. I'd probably say that, I mean, St Anne's isn't a religious college by any means. We don't have a chapel or anything. I don't think that there is really a major religion in terms of the student body that would at least be very obvious to your student life. I think it's in the sense that it's very diverse. There isn't really a sense, like, I don't think groups are obviously formed if you have very like common interests and you practice like a certain religion. That I know that there's some societies and stuff like that, but I'd say otherwise it's very free. People are very open-minded, and I don't think that there is. Yeah, I just say it's very diverse and very open-minded place, really.
Kay, Emily, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of agree, so I'm not religious myself, so I can't necessarily answer saying that I've taken part in stuff, but as in from a almost neutral perspective, just seeing what happens in St Anne's, there are within St Anne's itself, there are like faith societies that you can attend if you want to like learn more, maybe, or if you're part of that faith group itself. And there's also I've seen events on like over the course of my degree that maybe interfaith coffee evenings or coffee afternoons or something. We can kind of get to know groups of other faiths too. But the university has so much stuff as well that you can go to, as does the city itself. There's a mosque, there's many churches, there's a gurudwara. Like, you can really kind of be part of a religious identity in the uni, but also in the city too, which I think is quite nice.
I'm also coming from quite a neutral perspective, but the one insight I can give is that someone in my household, Alethea, is at the head of the Christian Society at St Anne's, I think this year, or the incoming head, and she had a very thriving social life. She was always doing something with the Christian Society. So yeah, there's a very active community at St Anne's, I'm sure, in terms of the Christians. I think other religions as well. But yeah, everyone's also definitely very accepting, and yeah, it's. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think St. Anne's allows you to express your religion however you want to. Because I'm a Christian, but I've never actually joined the Christian society or even, I need to. Well, now I know we have one. But I kind of knew we had one, but I wasn't. I just did not like. So it just lets you like be as much as you want, like when you want and how you want to. So I think that's really good. And in terms of your identity too, you can always, like it's a very open, inclusive college, and I think that's one of like the best part of St. Anne's. It's just inclusive. Everyone's always welcoming and open to, your identity or like just anything you want to do. I feel like St. Anne's is the best place to find yourself and like be who you want to be. If that makes sense. So yeah, really like it's just an amazing college. Um, I'll move on to the next question. I am studying St. Anne's really well today. Um, how do you manage the workload on your course, and is it challenging? Um, would anyone like to start?
I'll start. So the workload is like arguably it is high. I think that's something that Oxford doesn't ever attempt to hide. Is that we do get not ridiculous amounts, but we do get more work than other universities, and we have shorter terms at Oxford, so we only have 8 weeks, 8-week terms. It means that you're kind of packing in more work into a short amount of time. So that isn't like the workload is high, but I've never found it unmanageable, or if I've ever found that I've got too much on my plate at one time, I found that the tutors are like enormously understanding. I've never had a tutor that ever expected me to do something that I told them I was struggling to do. Or, they would basically be like, okay, just scrap that bit of work, let's just talk it through instead. Or they would, talk to my other tutors on my behalf and kind of reach a kind of medium where they could, I was actually having a more manageable workload. But yeah, I've never found the workload completely undoable, like despite the fact it's high, and I've always managed to, and everyone I know has always managed to have a really, really good social life as well, and almost incorporate work into the social life. Like, say if you and your friends have an essay to do in the next few days, you can all go to a group study room, you can all study together, and you can kind of like make a kind of less intimidating few hours out of it. So I think that there's like many ways that you can tackle the workload and keep it kind of interesting.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with that. I mean, chemistry is sort of known as the subject where the workload is really quick and easy, especially in first year. I think it's just the fact that there's a lot of sort of like labs, for instance. I think most people, when they do A-levels or IB or what that might be before they come to university, their labs have been maximum 2 hours. And then when you get to university, you're there 6 hours, 2 afternoons a week for 6 weeks out of the 8. And I think that for a lot of people, that's a really big thing. And I know personally, I found that plus then the workload quite tough in first year. But I'd also say it was definitely manageable. Like I got all my work done and all of that and managed to have a social life as well. But I think it's also a case of, I think everyone just learns the way that they work the best. So, the workload does get manageable and you kind of learn that things will get themselves done somehow. I think that was like the best bit of advice that I got initially. Like it will get done. It might seem like it's a lot, but it just happens. And all the other students before you have also done it and you can get loads of help from them. So.
Yeah, I think you find that you're faced with the workload initially and you're like, wow, how am I going to do all of this? But I think you slip into it quite easily and realize that you will just you'll fit everything in. I think it's Parkinson's law. You fill your time with all of the tasks that you have to do. But the workload definitely for me this year has varied term to term. So it was quite high in Michaelmas, low in Hillary, and then kind of medium in Trinity. I think that may be to do with Corona that they varied it like that. But also doing a joint schools degree, I would say, so the English workload is pretty manageable, and it's sort of you make your own workload in a sense, like you have a task and you can read as much as you want for that or whatever in order to make it as good as you want. But with classics, it's very much we had classes at the faculty every day that you had to attend and then work for the next day, which was a much higher kind of set workload, but it was almost like once you'd done that, you ticked it off. So I think I can see how different degrees kind of require different things, but you get into that pattern and it will be fine.
Can I ask Emily something really quickly, actually, because you do join schools, and I've heard from a couple of teachers understanding the fact that sometimes there isn't the best communication between and like the tutors themselves. So they're like, okay, if you have too much work from this subject, we can, or has that been?
Yeah, it can be a problem. Because I'm only in the first year, it's not been so much of a problem yet. But speaking to my college mum and people like that, they've said that there are clashes, but luckily at St Anne's with my particular degree, it's we sort of have tutors that do both, so it's like a joint schools tutor, which is actually one thing that St Anne's is very strong on, because it means that they do coordinate. But I know that things. One of my friends is German and English, and I don't think the departments coordinate really at all, meaning that she had 2 sets of exams or something like that that were supposed to take a whole week, both in the same week. But she ended up emailing and it was fine, but it just means that you have to be quite proactive in sorting out your classes and contacting tutors, but tutors will be understanding.
Yeah, just like going back to the main question in terms of like the workload for law, I mean, it is quite an intense move from like sixth form to, like an undergraduate course. I think it's quite hard for everyone, and at first it was quite daunting. I think you realize that the work is a lot, but it's not impossible. Because I think most people thought we had to like finish all the reading lists and do every single piece of reading that we got assigned, and that was just like that's just not possible. Then sooner or later you realize that that you do what not what you can you do what you can, I guess. You do what you can, and if you need help you ask for help, and that's basically the main thing. Kate, there's a question for you, and it says, following a year abroad, can you stay in halls for 4th year? And can you just explain how if you find it difficult to sort out accommodation following the year abroad, basically?
Yeah, so well, one good thing about St Anne's is that they guarantee you accommodation for all 3 years of your degree, or if you're on a 4-year course, then a 4-year course where you don't have a year abroad, you will have to live out for 1 year. So St Anne's guarantees all 3 years, which means that following my year abroad, I was able to just move straight back into college, and it was no issue, which was, I thought, incredibly helpful. That I wasn't trying to, sort a private landlord and stuff, trying to like liaise with my friends where they were living, like while I was 500 miles away. So it was definitely super, super useful that St Anne's allows year abroad students to literally just move straight back in. And so the way that accommodation's sorted in St Anne's is that it's like a ballot system. So it's basically created to try and do the most fair system they can, which works quite well. So in first year, you're completely randomly allocated to amongst the rooms, the first year rooms. And then if you have a really good room in first year, you're kind of placed bottom of the list to choose for the next year, but it's fair enough. And then if you have not one of the best rooms, shall we say, in first year, it basically means in second year you get first pick of whatever you want, like ensuite, massive. You can also live out if you don't want to live in college. So during my year abroad, as a third year, I was basically the older you get, you're also put at the top of the list, the top of the ballot. So I was actually the first person in the whole college to choose this year. So I chose my room, which I'm in right now. And it's basically it's like a super easy system. College just kind of call you. They're like, do you want to live in next year? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, what room do you want? And I was like, that one. And that was it. It was sorted. And then came back from France and I just moved straight in. Like it was very, very easy. So that's something I think, I really back St Anne's for letting students live in for all 3 years, because Oxford can be really expensive if you want to live out. Like it's not a cheap city at all. So being able to live in college is, definitely like a money saver, which I found really, really useful. But what have you guys, do you guys all live in college still, or how have you found it?
Yeah, currently I live in college. Well, I don't plan on ever leaving college, but I think we might have to leave. Like, I think our year will have to leave for at least 1 year, because I think the Bevington, actually, I don't know if this is like information, but I'm pretty sure it is. it's public information. Actually, I would just say I think I'm going to live out for 1 year, but so far I love living in college. It's easy. You never miss a parcel because the porters always get your your mails, and I've never missed a package ever before, ever. And it's the best thing. You go to the library, you just walk back into your room at 3 a.m. The scouts are amazing. The whole food is always there for when I don't want to cook, or just don't want to do anything productive. I just go to halls and I eat there, and I just think I think just St. Anne's just gives you a good Oxford experience because it's not a stressful place. So it's just everything is easy and quick to access, and it's just I really enjoy living in college. Yeah.
I'm because I lived in college this year, and I'm living in next year, and I had a great experience this year, and it was I really felt like I got a lot out of the college experience. But I'm very excited for next year. Hopefully, it won't be as kind of coronary to get kind of the full experience, because this year we had to sort of book hall and you sort of have to wear a mask in the library and stuff like that, which obviously I completely understand. But I'm excited next year for maybe the college to be a bit more alive. And to see what it's like, because we've never experienced that.
Yeah, I also live in Hopeful. I live in college, and I lived in college in first year, and will do in third year as well. As a chemist who has extended terms in fourth year, so we get accommodation for the 3 years, which is guaranteed for everyone. And then for fourth year, you get, because you have extended terms, college can't really accommodate for that. So you have to live out, and that's the case with quite a few STEM subjects. And also then in general, people have decided to live for the 3 years in college, and then for the fourth year they're like, okay, well, you're the teaching side for a lot of subjects won't be as heavy then, so you'll want to get your own place at that point and stuff like that. But I know also people who do second year that they live out, and then if they don't have extended terms in fourth year, then they come back. But at least for quite a few of the STEM students, they enjoy the first 3 years and then see where they go afterwards. But yeah, I have to say that the price of living out and everything, I think it does really depend. If you can get a good bigger house, for instance, so if you've got 5 friends or something that you move out with, it can definitely it's not quite as expensive as getting something for yourself or for 2 people or something. So it's manageable, and I think college also has some financial aid with living out. So they've really tried to make that a smooth process, and they help out with it.
I'll move into the next question, and that's basically, does the college provide gym or the uni does the college provide college gym access or uni gym access, and is there a pool and just I guess what is included in the gym and stuff like that?
So
sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead if you want.
You go. I rarely use the gym, so I'm really not the person to answer this.
Yeah. So the college gym is, I think, £17, or at least was for my first year, for the whole year, which is a very, very good price. It's 2 rooms. There's basic equipment in there, and you can. It's open quite from morning 8 or something till evening, later in the evening. So it's pretty good, I'd say. We don't have a pool in St. Anne's, but I'm gonna have to pass to someone else about the university gym, because I haven't personally used it because I don't do any sport.
I've been to, so I know that the university does have an enormous gym that you do pay membership for, or if you are part of a university sports society, I believe you get access to it, or you get access to definitely certain facilities. But what you can also do, which is there's loads of taster sessions that you can sign yourself up for different clubs, but also gym taster sessions if you kind of want to use the gym for free and have a sneaky afternoon there, which is good because the uni does have a lot of completely random sports on offer. I've done a pole dancing session, which was free. I've done a swimming one, which is a swimming lesson because I can't swim, which was great. So I got a free swimming lesson. So there's a lot on offer, definitely, but I'm not too sure about exact cost if you want to have an actual membership.
Yeah, Yeah, I was going to say there is definitely a pool because that's where I did like my rowing swim test and stuff. So I know there's a pool, but again, I couldn't tell you about exact cost and stuff like that. But I assume it's reasonable, but that is an assumption. I honestly have no idea.
Yeah.
Do you have any, do you know about premiums and the prices and stuff?
I don't know anything, sorry. I can see the college gym is opposite my accommodation this year. So I mean I see people using it, it looks good. I don't know. I've never personally stepped foot, so yeah, sorry about that one.
I do have to say, beyond the university, there are a couple of gyms in Oxford, and they're quite reasonably priced. I think it was about, maybe for a student, about £20 a month, if I remember correctly. Which, like, I mean, again, it's obviously more expensive than the college one, but you do get a full gym, and yeah.
And moving on to the next question, what kind of societies are there at St. Anne's? I can start. I mean, because I'm part of like the rowing club and the netball team. So I know there's quite a few sport like teams and sport clubs and societies. There's also like I think there is a joint debating society with like St. John's. There's lots of like joint societies, say with like St. John's and like Wadham and stuff. But there's quite a few. Are you guys part of like any societies and stuff?
Yeah, I'm personally not actually part of any St. Anne's based societies, but I know that there's a couple for subjects. So subjects, I know that there's the Law Society and there's an Earth Sciences Society, which have different names, but I'm not going to try and remember those and get them wrong. And then, I mean, there's quite a few music societies, and also more, I think there's Chess Society that was formed not too long ago and stuff. So at least from the what I've heard a little bit, it can be quite a little bit more relaxing in terms of at least certain sports. So it's really easy to like try different things with the college.
Yeah, like I was part of some university societies, but I actually haven't joined a St. Anne's one, though I do know there are quite a lot. But something that's organised generally every year. I'm not too sure if it was this year or to what capacity it was this year because of pandemic. But some of the arts societies, so the kind of the literature, the kind of artwork societies in St. Anne's organise what's called Arts Week, either each term or each year, where they basically have, or they have had in the past, kind of events for everyone, but organised through the society. But you don't have to be, join the St. Anne's Society to do it. You can just turn up. So pottery painting, cake baking. They have different talks on, like poetry evenings. They had the author of Bridget Jones a couple of years ago did a talk, which was really cool. And then you had like dinner with her and stuff. So there's definitely kind of society organised, definitely like arts, kind of welfare, well-being events that you can just turn up to, which I did without having to join the society, which was really nice.
I'm in the St. Anne's Classic Society, which is I mean, I didn't really realise it was a proper society at first. I thought it was just something you did if you did classics, but I think anyone can actually join. And yeah, they do quite frequent events, really. This year it's been mainly kind of Zoom, like lectures and stuff like that. But there's also a couple of kind of publications at St. Anne's. Like there's I think it's called the Jar, I think, which is like it's like a poetry sort of art magazine that they put out. I think it's once a year, maybe once a term. But yeah, there's quite a lot of small societies happening at St. Anne's. I think people just kind of get involved either sort of through their subject or through people they know. But yeah, it's quite happening. And they're also, I'm also in what is it? Some kind of classics thing with Brasenose. I don't know. I think maybe this year it's been less clear what societies you're in and what societies you're not, because it's mainly been online, so you haven't necessarily had to go to things in person. But yeah, there's a lot on offer for sure.
Okay. The next question is how do you think St. Anne's has responded to the pandemic?
I think so. It's been very different because I guess I've got kind of the hindsight of I've had 2 normal years of my degree because I started in 2017, and then I had a year abroad, which the second half of it was really strange. and then I've had like a whole year because I live in college all year round pretty much. So I've lived here since March 2020. I've not really gone home. So it's been strange, definitely. But overall, I think, given the terribleness of the situation, I think that St. Anne's has managed it pretty well. Like, I feel as though, despite everything, I've still been able to be social, you know, like within the guidelines and stuff. I think that St. Anne's has really tried its best to still put on social events, you know, and obviously like there's a lot more to say, I imagine, for first years. So you guys could tackle that, but definitely, you know, as like a finalist. There's been welfare events which have been really great because, you know, obviously I've had like my final exams and stuff. There's been fourth year events which has been really nice, and college like definitely tried to have, whilst in-person teaching wasn't possible a lot of the time, you know, tutors were still kind of organizing things like on the quad, which is like a big square of grass in the middle of college. Like we were able to go and sit on that and like wear masks and stuff and have like hot chocolate and kind of still have like a sense of normalcy despite the situation. But college has been very different, like compared to normal times, I guess. But that was always going to be the case.
Just to add to that, I think from like the fresher, because I honestly would not tell you what like ANDS was before the pandemic. I wasn't here because I was in the fresher, but from what I've gathered during the pandemic, we all got put into households with people doing our course. So I live with 7 other lawyers, and I think it goes on for like every other course. So you live with other people doing your course. That's something ANDS did in response to the pandemic, which has been, I guess, quite helpful because then, you know, you live with people in the same course, so you get like that instant friendship immediately, and that was something that, you know, I think most people quite appreciated, because then kind of, you know, I think the pandemic and the whole living situation forced friendships a bit closer. The whole like, you know, new awkward phase lasted for like 2 days, and everyone became like best friends in the household. Like each household became a family. So, and in Trinity, Anne has been really good in trying to like slowly integrate like, you know, different households according to like the government guidelines and stuff. So we've been having events where like, you know, more than one household can like mix, so people get to like know each other and actually, you know, get back your normal uni experience. But I think overall St. Anne's has been quite good in ensuring that like the welfare and teaching our students haven't been too impacted by the pandemic. So yeah.
Yeah, I think almost as a fresher, because we know nothing else, we don't realize what we're missing out on necessarily. So it's like, I've had a great first year and I haven't been thinking, oh, I'm missing out on this and this. Obviously, you know, some events get cancelled and stuff according to government guidelines, but that's not really anything to do with college. But it's been really great. And I think, I mean, I have friends from other subjects, so you know, there has been, you know, eventually, you know, college made ways for us to meet people and stuff like that as the rules have gone down. So I think, yeah, I think potentially it's a sort of, not ignorance is bliss, but I don't think we didn't know what was there before. So this year we've kind of just made like strange routes to kind of just having like the normal experience. And
yeah, I, as a second year, so I had like almost a year of normal times. I have to say that it obviously, like, yeah, it is really different, but I have to give like Anne's a pretty big thank you for how like well they managed it in terms of places, at least in Michaelmas term. I mean, a lot of other universities and colleges, just the whole world, sort of, there was a lot of outbreaks, but I think St. Anne's was pretty good at like just managing that, and I think St. Anne's students also quite well respected the fact that it is a serious thing and it's really important to keep to the guidelines. And I think even, you know, especially early Trinity, that was definitely the case in terms of it felt safe coming back to a certain extent, definitely, which is a really important thing.
Okay. Next question is, why did you decide to apply for your subject, and what did you do to stand out, I guess? I don't mind going first. I applied for law. Actually, my applications were quite I applied for quite a few things. I think I had like 3 different personal statements, like each uni I applied to. But I decided to apply for law because I don't know, I like talking. I genuinely enjoyed the law, or just like things I had seen or heard, or just like the ideas I had gathered generally. I say to stand out. I think to stand out, I did quite a few sciencey stuff because my that was kind of my focus. So I applied to like your Imperial for physics, and then I had to apply to like to Oxford for law. So it was quite an odd mix. So I think that was like that's why I stood out, because my personal statement was a very interesting read. And I think the teachers were probably a bit too confused. They thought that's why we should interview her, because we don't quite get what she's talking about. Yeah, and I guess like just like in general, I did like little like just like little like extracurricular activities that I assumed, well, that I hoped gave me like gave me a little boost. So like I had gone to like some summer schools, some of the like the free summer schools you can attend, and I just said and I just like said that how that like helped me get an interest for the law for my course. And I think that like, you read books, you do summer schools, you join clubs, societies, anything that shows like an interest into the course you're applying for. I think that's usually good enough. So that's basically why I think I stood out.
I'd say so. Like for French, well, I mean, I didn't really have any like necessarily deep reason for choosing my degree. It's just I liked it in school. Like it was my favorite. French was my favorite A level, and I liked English literature as well. And I knew that Oxford has quite a literature-based language course. So I was like, all right then, this seems decent. But I think definitely for humanities, especially like kind of literature-based courses, I think that my top tip would be in terms of the personal statement. And I wrote my personal statement like 5.5 years ago. So maybe it's out of date now. But I think, it's great if you're reading books kind of around your subject, but I'd say what's not great is if you just list them in your personal statement. Like no one really wants to read, my paragraph, my personal statement where I list like 6 French books that I've read. I think what is so much better is even if you talk about one and you say something that you've learned from it, maybe, or you say something you found interesting and you talk about that, you use that to kind of launch a mini discussion in your personal statement rather than just proving that you've read it. Because I think that anyone applying to Oxford probably maybe has, read a little bit outside their subject at least. So I think to stand out, it's saying what you actually took away from that kind of extra reading, or maybe that, club that you joined that was to do with it, not just saying like, oh, I joined the debating club in my school. It's saying I joined the debating club and here's what I kind of took away from it. Here's how I developed myself. Here's what, I learned. I'd say that that's definitely key rather than just a list.
Yeah, for sure. So I applied for chemistry as I only decided really the summer of applications. So I thought I wanted to do medicine for about the longest time until I figured out I didn't really want to be a doctor. So my all my experience was very medical based until I decided that wasn't what I wanted to do. But for me, one of the main reasons that I wanted to come study chemistry was the fact that there was aspects that I was learning through physics and quantum mechanics that I was just so fascinated by, and I bothered my physics teacher every lesson. So I just felt like I kind of owed it myself to come to university and actually learn those things, which has been really amazing. And then the second part was just that the chemistry is one of those degrees that you can go into pure chemistry afterwards, or you can do something completely different. And it's a very strong subject in terms of your opportunities to go beyond, like after careers choice wise. And to stand out, I think because you've got such a diverse group of students that you end up having, everyone has stood out in a certain way. I'd say that maybe something that in my interview I was quite honest towards the end. I said I didn't fully understand the thing that we were discussing, but I was really interested. So I genuinely, when they said, do you have any questions, I was like, can we actually talk through this a little bit more, because of something that was really interesting. So perhaps that was something that made them think, oh, actually she actually wants to learn this. She isn't just trying to like say the right things to impress the tutors or anything, because I think that that's a really important thing. Your tutors are there to teach you about your degree, and if they want to look for someone who they want to teach, that's a really important thing.
Yeah, I think in terms of choosing a degree, I did a mixture of kind of sciences and humanities at A-level, so I had quite a lot of options, and I think I looked through every single degree on offer, to be honest, at Oxford, just thinking like, what can I do? And it was quite late on, I think in the summer of like coming up to year 13, that I decided I wanted to do classics and English, just because it was so English was always my favorite subject. I was like, if something's going to be hard, I might as well enjoy it, so I'll do English. And then classics I'd never studied before coming to university, actually. But I just wanted a bit of, something a bit more than English. I wanted something kind of slightly more systematic, and you get that through the language and classics and everything. But I applied twice, because I always wanted to take a gap year, so I applied deferred entry, but I got rejected the first time I applied for Oxford. So I think I can kind of say what I did differently the second time. And the second time I'd done like an extra summer camp kind of thing. But I think the main thing is that I just wrote about what I was genuinely passionate about. I didn't kind of list the most impressive, so to speak, books that I'd read, or sort of tried to sound advanced or anything in what I was saying. I just wrote what I was interested about, what I was passionate about. So it means when you come to the interview, you just seem very excited, and I think the tutors can really feel that, and they can feel you kind of going like, oh yeah, and that means you ask questions and you get a bit like jumpy or whatever, because that's what they want. That I think once you get to interview, they're genuinely looking for someone that they want to teach and someone that would be enjoyable to talk to. So just genuinely just write about the stuff that interests you, and don't try and impress anyone with your application.
Next question is, did you know what career you wanted to do before you started your degree, and has this changed? I could just start and say, I think I do, but I'm not really sure, and I think it's changed again, but I'm not also really sure if it's changed. So not the best answer, I'm sorry, but I hope you guys have better answers than I do, because yeah.
I didn't know what career I wanted to do, and I still don't, which is okay, even though I'm leaving in like a couple of weeks. But what's kind of linked to that, something else to kind of sell St. Anne's is that St. Anne's offers, which is what I'm doing next year, because I literally don't know what job I want yet. St. Anne's offers a scholarship year after you graduate, so they pick 5 graduates. Or you apply and they pick 5. You get to go to Japan for a year for like an all expenses paid year studying. So that's what I'm doing. St. Anne's offers that. So I thought that'd be really cool, like kind of linked to languages, but you don't have to be a languages student. Like there's a girl who does engineering who's going, there's another languages person, someone who does classics who's going. So that's like a really cool thing about college, that you can just go and like learn Japanese for free in Japan for like 11 months or something, and then maybe after that I'll have figured it out. But that's something like really cool that St. Anne's offers if you kind of get to the end of your degree and you still don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I found things when I came to university. I mean, I don't think I really knew what I wanted to do. Maybe I had some ideas, but not really. And I think these sort of when you get thrown these big career things in certain industries, which are maybe make you think, oh, maybe I should go this way, maybe I should go that way. But I guess more like I've just consolidated on what I might want to do afterwards, and I've kind of learned what I might not want to do, which I think is more important than knowing exactly where you want to go. And adding to Anne's offers, Anne's also offers summer internships. So there's the Dyson internships, I think they're called, which are really cool opportunities for you to, actually see what that industry might be like, and just get some good stuff for the CV. So yeah.
Yeah, I similarly don't really know. I have an idea of the general field, but I don't know if you need to know quite yet. I mean, I think I just want to focus on my degree, and then hopefully something will come to me, some kind of epiphany. I don't know.
Yeah. So a question: how would I answer the question, why Oxford, if I got it in an interview? And did you get to ask this? I just want to say personally, I feel like if a tutor asked me why Oxford in an interview, I would just stare at you for like a full minute and go, why do you think Oxford? Because that is such an awful question to ask somebody, because what could you say that wouldn't be like, cringy or, like not basic, I'm applying here, it's a great or because it's the best university in the UK. I feel like it's like I didn't get asked the question. I don't think I know many people who have gotten or ever gotten asked that question, but I just, oh my God, I think I just cry. You asked why Oxford.
I think honestly, you have to remember the fact that your interviews are maximum, at least from my experience, they've been maximum 30 minutes, and even that was like the longest interview I had. So the tutors really aren't, whilst they want to get to know you, they have 30 minutes to get to know how much you know and what you're going to be like to teach. So that sort of their last question is going to be why Oxford? Because I think that they just trust you. If you applied, you know why you want to come, you know? So I think it's not something to worry about. And I think, like, at least for myself, that's sort of changed. I mean, I would have given a certain answer if asked when at interview, and I think that would be very different if I was asked that today, because obviously you have the experience of being in Oxford and you've learned different things about the course and everything that you can't know until you get here. So
I hate to counter you guys, but I think in one of my interviews, I didn't get why Oxford. I got why the Oxford course for my classics. In one of my classics interviews, and that was more specifically because my tutor was hinting at the fact that for a lot of classics degrees you don't have to do the language in the original. It's more like a sort of classical studies, where he kind of wanted to say that he wanted me to say basically that it was because of the language. Well, I think that's what he wanted me to say. That's what I said. It was because of that I wanted to learn the language, which is of course why I applied for the Oxford degree. But yeah, I don't think they would ever just ask kind of why the university. That they would only ask, the course. It was quite an obvious one because the Oxford Classics degree is quite a standout from other classics degrees across the country, and that's why I really didn't want to go anywhere else, just because I wanted to learn the languages. But I don't think they're just going to kind of ask why Oxford, so you can kind of say how great the university is, because they already know, they work here. It's yeah.
The next question is, how did you find the application process for your subject, and especially like the admissions, like as tests and like interviews and all those like things you had to do?
I'll go first, just because for me it was a very, very long time ago, so the memory is gone. I remember more important stuff now to do with the degree. But for me, for languages, it was the case of writing a personal statement. And then I had what's called the MLAT, which is like I think it was 30-minute or 45-minute grammar test that I had to do, which was basically nothing that I kind of, it's nothing like outlandish that you're going to be asked. It's just some, kind of what you might be doing at A-level and stuff, kind of grammar questions, mini translations, like you translate a sentence, like you conjugate the verb and stuff. And I had to submit 2 essays, one written in English, so I chose an English literature A-level essay that I'd written, I quite liked, and an essay written in the target language. And that was kind of it. You just submit those for me, and then I just had the one interview at St Anne's, and personally they didn't ask me about my personal statement, they didn't ask me about the essays that I'd written, but I do know that that's something that tutors might sometimes do if they thought maybe one essay you wrote was particularly interesting, or they wanted to pick up on some personal statement stuff.
I had I similarly had to do 2 pieces of submission work. They wanted one from each subject, but because I'd never done classics, they just sent 2 English essays in. That's fine. And then I had also 2 entrance exams. One was a kind of one was the ELAT and one was the CLAT. Basically, one was a grammar exam and one was a kind of you had to analyze passages. But then I ended up having, I think I had 5 interviews, because I had 2 at St Anne's and then 2 at Oriel and 1 at the classics faculty. So over those interviews, I got asked about my submission work, about the entrance exam, about my personal statement, and then about general passages that they gave me. So it was quite a lot, but I was always quite excited to get another interview, because there's sort of like an interview board and they say, we've got one here. But they're quite fun. Like, if you like talking about your subject, don't be worried about them, because it can be hard, but it's sort of, I don't know, you just get to talk to like a world expert basically in the field that you're interested in. So yeah, I really enjoyed the kind of application process in general.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm going to feel also very old in this, because the chemistry application process changed ever so slightly. So when I applied, I did, personal statement, and then what we had to sit was the TSA without the essay at the end. So I think it's 90 minutes of critical thinking, of problem solving. But apparently it seems that chemistry doesn't do that anymore. So they've taken that away from the application process, which is quite nice, I suppose. But so I did that, and then came to interviews, and I had 2 interviews at the college that I originally applied for, and then I got pulled from interview backgrounds. And I have to say, I kind of had the, at least from what I've heard, the more typical experience in terms of I didn't get asked anything about the personal statement. I didn't get asked anything about, Oxford, the course, my TSA. I don't know if they had too much of an influence on it. Yeah, mine was just generally, they just quite literally say at the beginning at this meeting that they were going to be like, look, if we don't even ask you how you are, that's fine. We're not trying to be rude. We just have a really limited amount of time. So we'll just get straight into the subject. And that was kind of like my experience in all the interviews. It was just intense chemistry. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess my experience was similar. I did the LNAT and I had like sent my personal statement in, and during my interviews, didn't get asked anything on my personal statement. The fun fact, I realized why I probably didn't get a question in my personal statement, because one of the books I had read and was so amazed by was written by I think one of the people who interviewed me, and I did not know that. And I think I was trying to be clever, and I think during my personal statement I criticized the book. Keeping in mind, I obviously do not know I still don't know the law. I think I was trying to be clever on my first side, kind of, threw like a little bit of criticism at the book. So, and I think that's why I got asked no questions about it. So I was quite happy, because I remember on the day of the interview, I was still reading the book to completely understand it, because I still didn't quite understand the book, but I just didn't like one thing it said. So I kind of focused on that for the entire personal statement, but it was fine. Like, I got no questions asked about it. I had both my interviews on the same day. I cried in one of them. It's like yeah. But it's actually funny, because I was speaking to my tutor, and she can't remember me crying. I don't know how she can't, because I think she's just saying that to make me feel better, because I cried. It was not like a small slide cry. It was like an actual, like, I wasn't making sounds, but you could see the tears running down my face. And it was an actual cry. It was not good, but it got better in the second one. I enjoyed my second interview, and I guess I did enjoy my first one minus the theory bit in the middle. But yeah, just wrapping up. Does anyone have like a final question? Well, sorry, does anyone have any like words of advice you would give to your past self applying to Oxford?
I'd say so. Specific to the interview, something that I was told, and I really tried my best to do, and I think it worked quite well, and something that I always tell people to do is during the interview, literally say everything you're thinking. Like 100% think out loud. The tutor might ask you a question, and it's perfectly fine to say, could I have maybe 20 seconds to think about that? And the tutor will be like, yeah, go ahead. But like, what I would stress is don't sit there in silence and try and work it out. They might ask you a question about a book, or they might ask you a question about something sciencey. And I think that what's really important is in your head, however you're thinking about it, say it out loud. So maybe, oh well, I think it could be this, but actually something I read maybe kind of would contradict that. Because I think that what Oxford tutors are really looking for is how you think, because they want to know how you work and like kind of what capacity you have to think about abstract concepts and stuff and things you don't know about. So definitely think out loud, so that the tutor knows exactly how you're problem solving and knows exactly kind of your thought process, because that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, I'd say also something that I was actually told when I came, so I guess I could have told a little bit earlier, Rosma, but not too much earlier. But it was just the fact that, like, when you're in the interview, don't try and think of how you're doing, because you have no way of knowing how other candidates are doing. So there's no point in you thinking like, oh, this is going well, this is going bad, because like we just learned, I mean, you might cry in your interview and still like go great in terms, like you really don't know. So it's just the best that you try and concentrate on answering those questions, saying exactly everything that comes to mind. And yeah, and also don't be too discouraged if the teacher just says no. I know that that's kind of the case, especially in STEM subjects, because STEM subjects tend to have a yes or no type answer. So if you just get a no, that, try and take that as a, okay, no, let's try again. Not as a, no, I'll stop thinking, which I know is easier said than done, but it kind of goes into your Oxford degree as well.
I would definitely just say don't filter yourself, and don't try. So, which is sort of what you guys have said. Also, don't try and say what you think you're supposed to say. Just give your genuine opinion, because that's what's going to be unique, and that's what's going to kind of gauge the interest of the tutors. And also, one tip I would say is, like, if you don't really understand what they're asking, try and clarify the questions. Just because in one of my interviews, I was asked a question, a sort of grammar question, and I sort of said, "Oh, do you mean kind of this, or do you mean this?" And she was like, "That's exactly it. That's the answer." I was like, "Oh, okay." So it wasn't just literally just say what is on your mind, like these two, and just be genuine.
Yeah, I completely agree. Say what's in your mind, and like if you have a train of thought, then you completely change your mind. I think that's something you should like be like, oh, I changed my mind. Can I like redo my answer? Because I think during one of my interviews, I had like an answer. I was rambling on about for like 10 minutes. Then she asked me a second question, and I thought, oh well, that was wrong. Just changed my train of thought now, because I was just saying the wrong thing the entire time. So like, don't be too scared to like say, I think I understand the question better. Can I like I guess move on from that and stuff. So yeah, thank you guys very much. I think this is the end of the live stream now, and I'm not quite sure what we do.
Thanks all for coming, though. It's been fun.
Yeah, no, it's been interesting.
Thanks. And obviously, best of luck for anyone who applies, and I hope you fix the answers because it's worth it.
Yeah.